Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have been working on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. What a great game, just in time for Halloween. If you didn't see our previous videos on this, I bought this game from a gentleman several years ago. And he came in and was saying, hey, I've got a pinball machine for sale. Would you be interested in buying it? And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, well, the only problem is I took it all apart. And I thought, oh, no. Whenever people do that, they always lose pieces, and sometimes they're expensive pieces. And so I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to work on a big project, where somebody's taking all the pieces off of it. And he's like, yeah, I disassembled the whole playfield, and I took every little part off, and I put them in little bags with numbers, and I took a picture. And I thought, oh, God, this is going to be maniacal trying to put this back together. I don't know. And then I said, well, what game is it? And the guy said, it's Frankenstein. And I thought, huh. So he's got a Frankenstein that's in pieces, and it needs to be put back together to bring it back to life. Yeah, I'm interested in that, and so he cut me a good deal on it. And Frankenstein's one of my favorite books of all time anyway. So yeah, we've been piecing back together a Frankenstein that somebody tore into a million little parts. We even had his arms and his head off in the previous couple videos, so if you didn't see that, go back and check them out. But we're down to trying to finish up this playfield. So far, we haven't had one piece missing. I can't believe it. We even had an extra piece. We had an extra plastic. But we're down to we have to put on the pretty extensive ramps that are on this game. There's two fairly major ramps on the game with wire forms and all of that, and so we need to mount those. I've got pictures, like the guy said, of every little part, every little thing, how it comes off and everything. So what I've been doing is working backwards through the pictures. But we're to the point now, I think, where we need to mount the huge plastic ramp back on the game. Let me show you what he sent us. We've still got a few little bags of parts. But there is a wire form, a smaller wire form, a pretty large ramp, and then a smaller ramp, but with some pretty heavy machinery on it, and a couple coils on it. And I believe the pictures are showing me that this one's going back on next. So we'll see if we can get that done. Let's check out the picture and see if we can tell how that mounts and if there's anything specifically special. Yeah, you never used that phrase before, specifically special, about that ramp and the way that it mounts that we need to pay attention to. All right, so these are the picture printouts that the guy made when he took everything apart. So I'm going back through it backwards and putting the stuff back on as the opposite of how he took it off, obviously. So I've done all of this, and I got up to this part here. He's showing how the ramp was on. So on the right side of the ramp, on the entrance, there is a little switch. There's a green wire that solders to one of the pins, and then there's a white with green stripe, and then there's a green wire that plugs into the middle. And he took four different pictures showing that. I just know from working on them before that there are two little screws that hold the front of the ramp down, and I've got those. They go actually in here. And then he's showing this little tricky thing. There's 3 lights on a plastic with 6 wires going to them. That's all coming out of the same area of the playfield. That's not the next one. Part of the deal is figuring out which is which. Okay, so yeah, he does show it. So there's 2 screws that hold the ramp. There's the wire thing. There's a couple wires on this spotlight here. And then you can see to the left of the ramp is that plastic with the 3 lights. And there's Frankie Baby. And then back behind that plastic is a wire form that shoots up to the top ramp, which is no longer on the game. At this point, we're going backwards. There's yet another switch. And he's showing that there is a mount over here on the left wall by the flasher. And he's showing that down by the slingshot, there is a metal piece that protects the plastic ramp, and it has a screw that mounts in there, and that's what holds it. So this holds it. This holds it. And that's the same place, it's just showing the screw. That's the bottom showing the screw. Right. Once you get that back on, then we can do this this plastic here. But you kind of have to get the wires to the plastic first, because that was like one of the last things they took off. So it's confusing. So yeah, let's clean up the ramp. That'll be step one. Okay, so it cleaned up pretty well. This was really messed up, but we heated it up until it went clear again. Basically, they've cleaned this with something, and so it's kind of a little foggy back there. And a little bit through here. It looks to me like it's some kind of cleaner that they used. But it's nice and clean looking now. We got all of the dirt off of it. It's a little foggy, but it will be mounted all the way in the back. In the part that's foggy, you won't see very well anyway. I need to look and see where these route. I think these go through this crack in the back. That one there and that one over there. Here are the 3 sets of wires for that plastic piece that goes here somewhere around the kicker, or that kicker, that what do they call it, a vertical up kicker or something like that, where it kicks the ball up that wire ramp. And then these 2 wires plug into the spotlight, and then this is the white and green wire that needs to be soldered back onto the switch. So let me lay the ramp up there where it goes, and we'll see what we can get accomplished. Alright, so I soldered the wire back on the switch and plugged the other one in. Plugged in the 2 wires for the spotlight that's going to be on Frankie Baby. And then the only 2 things that hold it in over here are 2 screws. So I'm going to go ahead and mount those. Sega. So I got the 2 screws in there. Got the screw there that mounts it. Got the screw and the little metal piece there. So every time I do this, I'm getting rid of another bag. He had like 81 bags of pieces. It's working out pretty good. I got the little spotlight working. I haven't plugged the back that switch or that flasher back there in yet, because it's under the playfield. But the next thing we need to do is, there's actually a flasher dome that goes right here, and the flasher piece is laying under it. If we lift up the playfield, we can get to that from the side here, and then I may be able to plug both of them in where they go to. Alright, so if you look at these pictures, there is a cutout at the top, the back piece, and if you look, see these 2 little wires running down through here. They don't run through the loom. And then if you look here, there's another cutout. You see these 2 little wires running down through here. They don't run through the strain relief or whatever it's called. So kicked this up, and these 2 wires just run down through here. I've got it in there, and then those 2 wires just run down through there, and they plug in. There's just loose plugs for them. And this flasher was still plugged in at the bottom as part of the harness, and was able to mount it back where it goes. So I think that's it for that ramp. So next up, I guess we need to do that weird plastic that goes there. I need to figure out if the plastic goes on first, or the ball guide goes on first, or what the deal is. Alright, so this picture pretty clearly shows what color wires go where. You have a purple one, that's actually purple, on the right, and then a yellow and black that goes on the first bulb to the right. And then the middle bulb has a yellow and a gray, that actually is. And then these 2 on the left, he put tape around to keep them separate so that you wouldn't get them confused. So I was able to plug them right back in, and if you see, that is still attached without the wire form being there. That's just how he had it. So I attached it back exactly how he showed it wired. The bulbs all do seem to be lighting up. I guess if you got the wires wrong, the wrong bulb would light up. It's supposed to be lock 1, multi-ball, and lock 2. And then that will mount like this on there. But there is a wire form that comes up to another ramp that comes up here, or another level, I should say. So we need to get that on there next. And this is split, I guess, so that you can wrap it around that form. So we'll see if we can make that happen. Well, I got it in there, but I think I did that backwards. I think you could... it's kind of tricky because you have to put the two... You have to put a nut here and a nut here to hold this in place. There's a washer and then the wire form and then a washer and a nut on top of it. But to get the plastic around it, you kind of have to step that one leg down through this slit here. I can't really get it around it now. You might be able to take it from the top and work it all the way around. I don't know, but the problem is with that in the way, it's hard to tighten up the two nuts, right? But I made do. So next up, I guess there's 3 screws to hold that in place. Okay, so got that installed with the 3 screws. The wire form is there. I would assume, you know what that means, that the next thing to do is to mount that upper level ramp. Let me show you the condition that it's in as they pulled it out of the machine. That little scoop thing will slide onto the top of that side over there. And there are 2 little diverter flaps in there. So if a coil pulls in, that flap opens up and it throws the ball into Frankenstein's hand, apparently. Or not Frankenstein, the creature's hand. So it's all kind of dirty. I don't know that I can clean this because it's under the plastic around the rivets, so can't really do that. You could drill the rivets out, clean it all up, and then re-rivet it, but I'm not going to. I should be able to clean that up better. A magic eraser works great on stuff like that, and then the plastic you don't want to really use a magic eraser on because it'll dull it. But any bright work, you can use a magic eraser and it'll look really nice. On the wire forms, you can't really sand them because you'll sand the gold off. And you can't really sandblast them or anything because it's the same thing basically. So that's always been a problem on a lot of these pinball machines. They made these gold wire forms and it's hard to get them to... It's hard to keep them gold and clean them up. So you kind of have to just do what you can do. But that will fit in right there eventually. But that piece there is the next piece that slides on. We're about done. There's not too much more left off of the machine. This plastic piece here, I'm not really sure where it goes. But I assume we'll find out in some of the pictures maybe, or maybe it will be obvious. 1, 2, 3, there's 5 screws on it. I would assume it goes on the back somehow, maybe up above that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay, so I need to clean that up, get it in better condition so we can mount it in the game. Alright, so back to our pictures. That top ramp piece that we're cleaning up, it looks like it's just held into place by those 2 brackets on it. And 4 green screws, and the screw holes should still be in the same spot so we can tell exactly how to mount it. And I think that's all that holds it up. So we'll do that and see how it looks in the machine. Okay, so I cleaned that up as best as I could and mounted it back, and yeah, just those 4 screws hold it. The ramp, all 4 of the little habit trail things go on top of it. And then it looks like, so you shoot the ball up in here, it kicks it out up to the top, which will allow it to come down the wire form. Or if they pull in this coil, it will divert the ball into the creature's left hand and this one into his right hand. It looks kind of weird. I don't know how I can hold the ball, but I guess they've got it all figured out. We noticed in a previous video that this finger is cut, but it looks like they're all like that. If you look online, must have been something they figured out at the factory, that they needed to cut a little bit of his finger off to make it work better. So we'll see how all that goes. And then I plugged it in the back. The cords were hanging there where they're supposed to go. I also figured out from the pictures that one plastic piece that we've got left, this thing, just trying to figure out where it mounts. It mounts right back here. And kind of hangs down, I guess, to cover this whenever the playfield slid back into place. So we've got that, and we've got the wire form left to install back on. And that's about it. And so far, we haven't been short one screw. Okay, folks, so I got everything mounted back on, and let me tell you a little secret. I thought that I had one screw missing. A lot of people say I have more than one screw missing. But back here, when I put this thing on just a few minutes ago, I had a bag with 2 screws in it, not 3 screws in it. So I thought, maybe I'm missing one. So I didn't want to steal one out of the other bags. So I went in my secret little part stash and I went ahead and got an extra screw. Put it on, matches it, everything's cool, right? So then I put on the rest of the stuff, including the little plastic piece up there. After I cleaned it, of course. You saw me put this on. I put the last wire form on. Mounts here, here, and here. And when I was done, I had one extra screw because it was in a different bag. So what I'm telling you is, this guy successfully took the entire playfield apart, saved every freaking screw, washer, and nut, every little part, and by following his pictures, I was able to put every single part right back where it went and didn't have any extra screws and wasn't missing any screws. So I just gotta say, job well done to that dude. So yeah, we put it all the way back together. Cool. So after I did that, I realized that the mail ran today and brought me the 2 scoop protectors. So if you don't know about these, on these pinball machines, a lot of times they get wear around the eject holes and things like that. So see the wear on the left and the right side there? It's very common on pinball machines for the wood to wear like that. And so there is a guy out there that makes little protectors that go around it. And the guy's name is Cliffy, so he calls them Cliffies. I guess his name's Cliff. And whenever you get a pinball machine that has a little wear, you just get a Cliffy, and it's a little piece of metal that wraps around the hole and protects it. But here's the thing. From what I understand, this guy's really busy and doesn't have a lot of help right now, or somebody quit or something. I don't know. I read about it online a little bit. Well, apparently, it's hard to get a Cliffy right now. So I emailed and could not buy the official Cliffies. So I went on eBay, and there was a guy on eBay in Puerto Rico, which is America, by the way, selling these. The same thing. I guess they're knockoffs. I don't know. I don't know if they're exactly like the Cliffies, but they're very similar. And he's in Puerto Rico, but it only took about a week to get here, and they got here today. So I've got the 2 Cliffy-ish, fake Cliffy, knockoff Cliffy protectors. One mounts there, and one mounts there. But the thing is, to mount them, you kind of have to take some of the stuff back apart. So I'm going to do that really quick, just to get it out of the way, and mount the 2 Cliffies in, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about the holes getting all wallowed out. It would have been cool if I got them before I put everything back together, but I knew it was going to happen. So it looks like about a 10-minute job to me, so let me swap those real quick. Alright, so there it is with the protector on it. It not only keeps it from chipping, but it covers up the damage too, makes it look real clean. Very cool. And it's just, it doesn't glue or anything, it's just held in place by the posts that are around it. And let me see if I can show you. The front of it is bent so that it wraps around the bottom, the inside of the playfield. And so that kind of snaps it in place. And then same over here. This particular one has 3 posts that hold it, just because this post happened to be in the way, so they just designed it where that post would grab it too. And there's also a little, this bends over and clamps around the playfield as well. So, very well designed. I don't know how long Cliffy's been doing them, but this place that I got these apparently has been doing them a long time too. And you know, I don't want to start a big war. I tried to buy the Cliffy ones, but I think he's selling so much stuff he just can't handle all the orders right now. So very cool. Got that done. So basically everything on the playfield is done. So I think what I'm going to do next is lift up the playfield, and I'm going to swap all the light bulbs under the playfield. They're all the original ones. I'm going to go ahead and put new ones in. There's a couple of them that don't light up or aren't lighting up, like these two. But I think they're actually flashers, so maybe the flashers aren't flashing in attract mode or something. But I'm going to swap all those just so we know everything's been changed, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here is the underside of the playfield, and we're going to swap out the light bulbs. I know a lot of you want to put LEDs in these, LEDs in these, but I don't do that. I use real light bulbs. Now, there are several different types. These are the 47 bulbs. And then these are the 555 bulbs. But on this one, they did something interesting where there are 4 spots, and if you look, there's a little sideways socket right there. So a bulb will stick out over that. A bulb will stick out over that. A bulb will stick out over that. And a bulb will stick out over that. So there are 4 places that they have a sideways socket mounted on the little PCB. Now remember, they could have made that thing however they wanted. Like if they didn't want that like that, they could have just made the board a little bit bigger where it took a regular socket on that one. Certainly on that one. Could have just made it a little bit bigger where it covered those 2 lenses. And certainly on that one, they could have made it a little bit bigger where it covers that lens. So why did they do that? Well, it's because they're not putting regular bulbs in that. So this little legend here in the manual says 555 bulbs and 906 bulbs. 555 bulbs run on 5 volts, or 6.3 volts, but 5 or 6 volts. And they are where all the little white circles are on these boards. So just regular lamps. And then the 906 bulbs are actually flash bulbs. And they run on, I think, 12 or something like that. 12 or 14. So they have these little black circles, and sure enough, it's where those 4 weird sockets are. So the reason they made those sockets different is because they want you to put a flash bulb in there. Now it seems kind of weird to have a flash bulb on that arrow, those 2 little inserts, and then this one up here, but that's how they wanted to do it. So that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to pop in some 906 flash bulbs in that, and then replace the rest of the bulbs, and then we'll see if we can go into like some kind of test and test them all and see if everything seems to be working right. Alright, so I've got it in flasher test. All of the flashers on the back box are working. If you stare at one and try not to ruin your eyes, you can see that every one of them will flash eventually. And down here on the playfield, most everything is working, but there's a few that aren't. So there's some hid under the playfield here, under the art. That's pretty cool. And this one on the left ramp is working. But the one on the top, on the right here, is not working. And then the 2 in the back corner are not working, that are on that ramp up there. I plugged those in, but they're not working. I think all the ones under the plastics are working everywhere that there is a flash bulb. But the 4 that are underneath the playfield that we just did aren't working at all. So that's this one, this one, this one, and this one. So it could be, though, that those have a different test or something. The two on the back and the one here, though, certainly should be coming on if this one's coming on. So something's going on. So let me see if maybe we've got a fuse blown or something, or what the deal is. Let's see if those three are connected in any way. Okay, so when you track stuff like this down, you just got to be smart about it. There is a little diagram in here that says flash lamp locations. And it draws what it says is 7R, which is this top right flash that isn't working. And then it shows two more around the vertical up kicker area. And then down here, this one that isn't working is either 3R or 15. It's not drawn in the correct place, though. They're more on top of each other. So I guess they've drawn them like this just so that you can differentiate between them. So then there's a little legend down here, and if you look at 3R, it says flash above IN, which is those two targets, I suppose, which is these two targets, and that flash is working. You can see it flashing. Okay. Now the flash bulb above it is not working. Okay, so it must not be 3R. It must be number 15. If you look at number 15, it says flashes around the vertical up kicker. Well, the vertical up kicker is way up here. But if you look at 7R, which is the one up here in the corner that's not working, it also says flashes around the vertical up kicker. And then it shows two more on the playfield, right? And looking and looking and looking, there's one there that's working. But if you look very closely at this other one, it's not working. It might look like it is in the camera, but it's not flashing. It's just the reflection of the flash bulb around near it working. Okay, so and then we have the ones on the bottom. We'll worry about that later. But all of the ones on the top, it appears that top right one isn't working. The top left one on the ramp isn't working. This one isn't working, although I just found that. And this one isn't working. So it's 4 different things. And if you look on here, it says that the top right one is 6R. And it's calling 6R flashes in the upper left corner. So that would be some of these. Well, it's hard to see, but both of those are working. And that one's working. So it's very, very confusing. So here's how you have to be smart about it. The plug that goes to the top right flash lamp that isn't working plugs in right here. And there's no other way to plug it. It has to be plugged in there. Well, if you look, it is an orange wire and a brown wire with a purple stripe. Okay. And then the top left one that it says is 6R or is different also plugs into an orange wire and a brown wire with a purple stripe. So both of those plug into the same color wires. This one that doesn't work has an orange wire and a brown wire with a purple stripe. And if we come up here to this one that doesn't work, it comes out here and plugs in here to a brown wire with a purple stripe. So the 4 that we have that don't work, on the top of the playfield at least, are all ran by a brown wire with a purple stripe. So that makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? So everything's confusing, they're all over the place, this is telling you there are all these numbers and all this crap. What really matters is that it's the purple wire, the brown wire with the purple stripe. For whatever reason, that string, all 4 of those, does not work. They're probably separately fused, and the fuse is probably blown. That would just be my guess. So let's see if we can figure that out. So once you get to this era of game, they're super complex. I mean, they've just got so much going on. So you got to just try to divide and conquer. So we just did that by figuring out that it's one line isn't working. The brown wire with the purple stripe ain't right, obviously. That's why none of those are working, and all the other ones are working. So we can ignore everything about all of the other ones. We just need to figure out that brown wire with a purple stripe, or a violet stripe. So this is the PPB board. I think that means playfield power board or something like that. It's just what they were using at the time. And here you go again. You've got like all this complex crap. There's just a bunch going on. But all we really need to do is look for the brown wire with a violet stripe. So you've got all of these solenoid connections, and all of this is fairly confusing, right? And then here it's showing you a bunch of the number 89 flash bulbs. Notice they don't show the 906 flash bulbs that are under the playfield. And they're all different colors. So we got black and brown, we got black and red, we got black and orange, we got black and yellow. We've got black and gray that's drawn, but then it says that it's not used, just to confuse you. We have black and violet, we have black and blue, we have black and green. Now the black and violet, that almost sounds right, but it says red, right top playfield, 3 on the right top playfield, and 1 on the insert. Right? So yeah, that's not it. But if you look over here, there's a separate one drawn. It says 4 for the upper right playfield, and it says brown and violet. Notice too that the way they're all connected is in parallel. There were times back in the day when the flash bulbs would be connected in series. So if you lost one bulb, it would make the other ones not light up. But these aren't like that. They all should be on. So if this isn't working, we got some kind of problem. But it appears this is our line. And it says 2Q24. So it goes back this way to that board, plugs in at pin 13. Another interesting thing is pin 13 is the last pin. So on a connector, if you're on the last pin, it could be that you've got a broken solder joint on that pin. Whenever you pull the connectors off the boards, the end pins always get stressed and they'll crack loose. So I guess pin 14 is the last one. It's not connected. So no, that's pin 4. If you look, this is, I don't know why they have this like 12, 13, 14. That's a typo, isn't it? Look. There's pin 4, and there's pin 4, but that must be 14. It lines up with 14. So anyway, it's not the very end pin, it's the one next to it. Still could be a bad connection on that or a broken solder joint, but typically the end one would break before the other one. Maybe. So it could be that connection. And then if you look over here, it says that it gets its power, the orange wire, is coming from the plus 32 volt at PPB connector J6 pins 4 and 5. So I thought that might be it. Connector J6 pins 4 and 5. But if you look at these other ones, it says the same thing. J6 pin 4 and 5. J6 pin 4 and 5. So they all get their connection, their power from the same place. It could be you've got, if we go look at that pin 4 and 5, maybe there's something screwed up there or something. But if these ones are working, you would expect that that must be fine. So here's J6, pin 4 and 5. Right? There is a fuse there, but they all get their power from that. So if they're all getting their power from that, if these are all working, it's probably not that fuse. So I'm going to look and see if there's a bad connection here or a bad connection here. And if neither one of those are it, it may be that we have a screwed up Q24, which is the transistor that's going to be running the whole thing. So we'll look for the easy stuff first and then look at Q24 if we have to. So I have it cycling through all of the coils and the lamps, and everything works except for those flashers. And they call it something different. On here it's going to say, we'll see if we catch it. It said ramp times 2, and then 2 other things, and they did not fire. Everything else is firing. So the issue I've got trying to figure this out is, let's see if we can get out of this. Alright, we're back to the flashes. They're not going off right now because the door's open. The weird thing that, to me, is that it's the only one that's wired different, so it's hard for me to believe that that transistor burned up. So the way they do everything is they have all of this is the coils and the flash lamps. This is a different part of the manual. And so, see how it says L and R? So basically, on the CPU board, the transistor can be turned on and triggered. And then it goes through the PPB board where they have two diodes, I guess, so the power doesn't go backwards to that. And it can make for this instance, the 6-ball lockout coil come on. And the way they do that is if the 32 volts is on the left, then the coil will have power. If the 32 volts is on the right, then these 4 flash lamps will have power if the same transistor comes on. And so they have a left side and a right side. There is a little relay on that power board that decides if the power is to the left or to the right. And you've seen all of this is working. It's all working, right? The only one that's different is the one we're having a problem with. So this transistor, Q24, it doesn't do the left-right thing. It just connects over to the power board from on one connector and then comes right back out of the power board. They're just using it almost as like a junction. And it turns on those 4 lamps that we're talking about. And they are hooked to the 32 volts on the right side. Well, a lot of these other ones are too. 32 volts on the right side, 32 volts on the right side, 32 volts on the right side, etc. You get the point. So there's all kinds of stuff hooked to that. So we've either got a problem, there's only one of 3 things it can be. It could be that we've got some kind of problem at this connection, where this connects a little different somehow, and that's screwing us up. Or it could be that we have a problem at one of these 2 connections. Or it could be that this transistor's gone bad. But it's hard for me to believe that transistor's bad when all the other ones are doing a similar thing, and they're all working. So since it's just wired a little different, I kind of think that we've got a problem at one of these connectors, or that this connection is somehow a little bit different since it only runs this one thing. So let me look around a little bit and see if I can see something obvious, if I can wiggle a connector and get it to work or something like that. Okay, so I've taken a jumper wire and I've jumpered the orange lead of that one bad string to the orange lead of one of the good strings, and they still don't work. So the orange wire must be connected just fine. All 4 of them are still not firing. So the problem is not the power going to it. Now you could also check that with a multimeter, but this is an easy way to do it. The problem's not the power, so it's got to be on that actual brown and purple line. I've wiggled the connectors the 3 places that it plugs in, and it doesn't change anything. So we're going to I'm trying to think if I could ground it some way. It is a ground. Wonder if I can ground that connection. Let me think about that. Let's see if I can start a fire. Okay, so this is the PPB board. I have it upside down, but that's how it was mounted in the game. It's the PPB1. So the motherboard connects a brown with violet trace wire from Q23 down to pin 13 of this connector. It then travels through a resistor and comes out pin 13 of this connector and goes to the sockets and everything. So we're just looking to see if there's a bad connection. Or it could be that resistor is burned up too, I guess. So pin 13 here. See what kind of shape it's in. It's that one that jags off to the left here. Yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that connection. We'll resolder it just to be sure, but so then it comes down and it runs across this resistor. We'll check that with a multimeter, and then it goes to pin 13 here. And that connection looks just fine. So I don't think the problem's going to be on this board. I'll reflow those anyways, and I'll check that resistor just to make sure. and then we'll look elsewhere. It could be the connectors to the board too, though. They are those internet insulation displacement connectors. All right, folks, so I am working through this, and I am figuring some stuff out in my strange way. I'm doing it a little different than maybe other people would do it. So I've got it in the flash test, and all of the flashers are doing their flashing thing except for those 4. Now, I replaced all of these bulbs when I did the playfield. Every one of them, made sure to do it. Remember, it was all taken apart, so they're all new bulbs. I used the bulbs out of the box over here that the guy gave me with the machine. Alright, now if you look, when it cycles the flashers, most of them are on these gray lines here. So I've got my logic probe hooked up. The way it works is the bulb gets power, and then the board, through these little tip 122 transistors, connects ground to the bulb. And whenever it connects ground, that completes the loop, the bulb lights up. All right, so if you watch, these are the wires going out to it. Let me see if I can do this where you can actually see it properly. See that sinking to ground? When it does that, the flashers that are on this wire are turning on. All right, and if you go through, they're all doing something similar. Right? There's only 2 exceptions. See how clean that looks? They're all... that's high, and then it goes low as it sinks it and turns the light on. So here's one of our exceptions. Look how weird that looks. A little different, right? And then our other one, remember, is by itself, and it's way down here. And it's doing the same thing. So it is not doing that. It is doing that. Okay, so that's step 1. So if you look in the manual, we are testing right here. Right? Well, actually, we're testing right here. Right? That's why they're gray. So these ones, they all do the same. Now the 2 that are different are this one, solenoid 8, and then ours, which is the one that isn't working. If you look at solenoid 8 is actually not used. There's no bulbs. It's not wired up. The ones that are used that have bulbs that are turning on, you saw we were getting a different thing. The one with no bulbs acts just like the one that isn't working for us. Now I have tested continuity from here to the bulbs, and it's fine. We just worked on this board, and this connection from here to here is fine. The connection from here all the way down to here is fine. So it's all connected up, but it's acting like there's no bulbs installed. Well, what would make it do that? Okay, so another thing I want to show you. See how this bulb's working? So this is one of the working ones. If you check over on the orange wire, which is the power coming in, you have, it varies between 30 volts and 45 volts depending on what kind of load is on it. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. If you check the other wire, you get the same measurement. And that's how it should be, because the power is just going through the bulb. Even if it doesn't ground it and tell that to turn on, you would still get the same voltage at this pin too, because the power is present through the bulb. Okay, now here's our one over here. Let me see if I can move this around. That isn't working. If I check on the power wire, between 30 and 45 volts, just the same. But if I check on the other wire, the voltage doesn't go through. Now why is that? It's because the bulbs burn out. So all 4 of the bulbs are burnt out for some reason, even though they're all 4 brand new bulbs. So I'm going to carefully remove this dome and replace this one and see if that one now works. And I guess just somehow I burn up all 4 of the bulbs whenever I turned it on. Maybe they all locked on or something. I don't know. But it just appears that the simple explanation is all the bulbs are burning out. But let me prove that by starting to put the bulbs back in. Okay, so I can't find anything obviously wrong with it. But here's the deal. When I put the bulb back in, this one, it immediately blows. Okay, you don't see that too often. So, just as a test and to waste money, I've put 4 bulbs in, all 4 bulbs in, and we're going to turn it on and see if all 4 of them immediately blow. So it's this one, which is laying right there actually. I have it all rigged up because I had to take it all apart to get to it. 2, 3, which is kind of hanging under there. And then 4 is buried back here. I replaced it too. So I've replaced all 4 of them that were burnt out on the string at the same time. We're going to turn it on and see if they all blow. So the easiest one to see is probably, well, I guess that one, since I've got it sitting there. So I'm going to turn it on and we'll just watch. It says open the coin door, which it does because I don't have batteries in it yet. All right, now when you open the coin door, it kills all of the coils and flash bulbs, okay? So we're going to go into the test mode. Coil test, cycling coils, cycling flashers. Now when I close this door, it's going to provide power to all of those, and they may all immediately blow. Nope, they're good. Weirdest damn design ever. Okay, see how they're all working now? I'm going to let it sit here and play for a bit and just cycle through just to make sure. But let me show you in the manual to deal with this. This is absolutely nuts. So here's our page we've been looking at again. You may have caught it. Some of you pinball people may have caught it earlier. You may not have. It's you engineers and people that are interested in this stuff that's where you want to watch this deep into a video, you'll probably find this interesting. So this is a Sega game, which previously was Data East, which has a lot to do with Gary Stern, actually, who ran Stern. So the guy that ran Stern, Gary Stern, his father and him bought Chicago Coin, which turned into Stern. Stern went out of business. Times were tough in the pinball world back then. In the early 80s. In the mid-80s, Gary Stern was hired to start Data East's pinball division. Data East was a arcade game company, video game company, right? So he's helped start, he ran Data East Pinball Company. There's all kinds of stuff you can get into about this. I love Gary Stern, by the way. I don't have anything bad to say about him. And then as the Data East sold to Sega, right? Sega bought Data East. So this is a Sega pinball machine. And Sega eventually went bankrupt, went out of business, and Gary Stern bought what was left of Sega. Whenever Data East turned into Sega, Stern remained as the manager of the company, or the president of the company. Whenever Sega went out of business, Gary Stern bought all of everything Sega owned, basically their pinball division, and turned it into the new Stern pinball machine, which is still around and the most dominant pinball machine company that's still with us. But look how this was designed back then. And this design is based on the Williams System 11 stuff. I don't know if the System 11 stuff works exactly like this, but I'm going to go check here in a minute. But Sega, at least, whenever they were using this board, which is the Data East board, which is very similar to the Williams board, they are running the flash bulbs off of 32 volts. The flash bulbs are 12-volt bulbs. So it's... Why would they do that? Well, it's just the way they've designed it. If they have 4 of them in parallel, and if they have a resistor on the board that it runs through, you remember? I don't know if you remember, but whenever we checked this earlier, there was a resistor that it runs through, a 3 ohm 10 watt resistor. But you saw that the power getting to the bulbs was 35 to 40 volts, right? 30 to 40 volts. And they're running 4 bulbs in parallel. Now, if they were running them in series, I guess it would divide the voltage up. But for whatever reason, they run them in parallel. But what that does is, What I was trying to do was put one bulb in. And you can see why it was blowing, because it was getting 40 volts on just one bulb, and just the resistance across the lines, I guess it burns up the bulb if you only have one on. You have to have all 4 of them working for any of them to work. It will burn them up immediately if you don't. That's just how they designed it. I don't know, maybe it can handle 3. So maybe you can lose 1 and the other 3 will stay on. But if you lose 2, it's probably going to burn the other 2. Now let's go. I've been sitting here talking for 2-3 minutes. Let's see if they're still working. Yeah, they're still working. I just burned up 2 bulbs on that one though, trying it. Just put one in, it burns up. I guess I could illustrate it to you by taking a couple of them out, but I don't want to do that. But if you think about it, I must have turned this thing on with coil power whenever I didn't have the ramp on yet. Like if I didn't have these 2 ramps on, then the 2 bulbs wouldn't be plugged in on that one string, and I would only have that bulb and the one buried behind Frankie here. And for whatever reason, just it plays with the amperage or the resistance, I guess, across the bulbs, and will burn them, slap the crap out if you turn it on like that. And so then the next time I turned it on, those 2 were probably burnt out, and those 2 were fine, but it burnt them up immediately as soon as I turned it on. Absolutely crazy design. So let me see if on the Williams System 11, which is kind of what this is copied after, let me see if on a System 11 game they're running it off the 32 volts like that. All right, so we just worked on a whirlwind, and here is part of the schematics of a whirlwind. They're showing you that basically, just like on the Sega game, this predates the Sega game though. Like I said, the Data East board was basically a rip-off of the System 11 board from Williams. Whenever this relay goes one way or the other, it either provides the 25 volts that they used for their coils. Now on this one, we're using 32 volts, so they've stepped it up to make everything stronger, I guess. But on Williams, it would provide the 25 volts through this relay to one side or the other. It had its own fuse, and then it would, for instance, run the kicker. So it would send 25 volts through the kicker to make that coil work. Or it would send 25 volts through a flasher, but they had an 11 ohm resistor on that line to try to lower the voltage. And it says up here that there are 2 bulbs on that. Now driver transistor Q33 can actuate the bottom right flasher circuit, which has 2 lamp circuits, one to the insert board and one to the playfield. So there's 2 flash bulbs on this, and they're using an 11 ohm resistor to lower the voltage from 25 to run those 2 bulbs. But on Sega, they're running 4 bulbs off of it, and they've only got a 3 ohm resistor. So there must be something to do with the number of bulbs and how quick they pulse it and all of that. So long story longer, if you, on a Sega, if you have flash bulbs out, it's probably going to be the entire string, and you probably need to replace all of them before you turn it on, or they'll just burn up again. If you put one in, it'll overload it, and it'll burn it up as soon as it flashes it the first time. In other words, though, I think our problem's fixed. All right, for the other bulbs that are the lamp bulbs that were underneath the playfield, the 906 bulbs, those are traditionally flashers, but for whatever reason they're using them as regular bulbs and just putting 5 volts through them. I don't understand that at all, but see how this one says jackpot? That's actually on right now, and that's one of those. See how it just went off? Okay, now the other ones were the ice cave, which is on right now, and then the 2 under it. So they are using 906 bulbs as 555 bulbs. I have no freaking clue why they designed it like that. Makes very little sense to me, but I'm sure there's some good reason. But they're all working. But they just work like regular bulbs, but you don't put a regular bulb in them. I don't know. I guess take it up with Sega. Interesting design. So here's the lamp matrix, and the bulbs that we're talking about are the left orbit jackpot, and you can see it's just part of the regular columns and rows. Number 28, number 38, the ice cave mode, same thing. It's part of the regular row and column. The move jackpot, number 41, and the change scene, number 42. And so they're just wired in like the regular bulbs, but they're using a bulb that's supposed to take 12 volts instead of a bulb that takes 5 volts. Just the weirdest thing. I don't understand that. But I guess if the 906 gets 12 volts, you'll get the bright flash, and so it's basically running on 5, where it's more dim like a regular bulb. But I don't know why they feel like you need to use that instead of just putting a 555 in there. Whatever. I'm sure there's some good reason. I will probably never know that reason, but I just thought it was interesting. All right, some of y'all can do the math. So this is a 555. That's what's supposed to be in it. It's supposed to run on 6.3 volts. The watts are 1.58 watts, and it's a 1/4 amp. Okay, but they are running a 906, which is it's supposed to run on 13 volts. So they're running, instead of 13, they're running it on 6.3 or whatever it is. And then the wattage, it's supposed to be 9, but it's running at half voltage, and the amps are supposed to be 0.69. So they're running a 9-watt bulb at half voltage, and what the bulb that's supposed to be in there typically would run at 2 watts, and the amperage would be at a 1/4 watt, but they've got a 9-watt bulb in there instead at half voltage, and a 0.69 amp bulb in there instead of the 0.2 or whatever it was. So I don't know. They must be banking on, since they're running it at a lower voltage, it would be about the same brightness, because it would lower the wattage or something like that. That's what I'm guessing. And that's what it looks like with all the lamps twinkling, doing their thing. Pretty cool. All right, so now I guess I'll see if I can quickly test the switches. That's usually pretty easy. You just put it in switch test and press all the switches. Technical. All right, I've found the switch test. Active switch test. None, because we don't have the balls in the thing. But like if you hit a switch, seems to work pretty good. Shooter lane. I did find one that doesn't seem to work. So all of these are working. But this one doesn't, the A, for some reason. So it could be a wire's broke or something, or it could be that the switch is dirty. If the switch is dirty, if you press it about 50 times, it'll start working. Well, look at that. So let's try it again. A. It's a little dirty. Yep, so I'll clean that a little bit. But everything else is working. There may be one under the playfield on the scoops. You know, if the ball goes down that scoop, there's a switch down there that it hits so that it can tell that it did it. But usually they're fine. So I think everything's working. All right, and so the final thing with this is I put the balls in. 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, this is a 6-ball game. It has a heck of a multi-ball, apparently. Apparently, Frankenstein up there can catch the balls and everything. I don't know. It seems crazy to me. But that's what they say that it does. All right, folks. So we've about got it finished. But this video is like an hour long. So we're going to have to stop it here. I know what you're wondering. You're wondering, did I fix Frankenstein's head? And yes, I did just fix his head. The way the head works is there is this thing in there called a servo, which is basically just a little motor, and it's used to on remote control cars a lot. So this is the original one. It's an Airtronics 94102. Okay, and there's a peculiar little thing. So on a lot of these pinball machines and stuff, if they needed a part, they didn't reinvent the wheel. They just ordered an off-the-shelf part, which this just happens to work for remote control cars and things. So they ordered a pretty common one and a quality one, and used it to move Frankenstein's head. So if you have problems with it, you can just order another one. But here's the problem. This company that made these, they had a strange way that they pinned the connector. All of the remote control car servos are usually pinned the same way. They have a Now I'm going to get them backwards. I think I've got this right. They have one lead on the end that is the signal, and then there's a ground and a power. And then, for whatever reason, this company reversed the ground and the power. Now, I may have that backwards, but that was what was going on. Those last two wires are reversed. So eventually, this company got with the program, and all of their new ones are wired the other way. But whenever this particular machine was made, they set it up to where it used this old wiring. So his head wasn't moving. I kind of thought this might be the problem. So I went online and I ordered a new one. And put it in, rewired it, very easy. And now, look, he's watching us. It's kind of creepy. It's a little bit scary. If this person doesn't come in outside that's parking, I'll turn off the lights so you can see it better. It's a really good looking game. And you know, we always put the original bulbs in it. We don't put those fake LED bulbs in it. I think it looks good with the original bulbs. Yeah, so there's just a little program that it runs. There's a little board that runs the head, the servo, and the way it works is it just sends out little signals changing the signal going to the servo, and it just kind of, it's not random, but they're like pre-programmed little routines where he looks to the right and he looks to the left and then he looks back in the middle and he waits a second, he looks to the left, and it has nothing to do with gameplay. It just basically, he does this the entire time that you're playing the game. It has nothing to do with what switches you hit or anything. Now on the famous Rudy from Funhouse, he actually would look in the direction of a switch that was hit, so it was a little more creepy. And of course his eyelids and stuff could move. But it's a cool little toy, and he can throw the pinballs at us. So we'll see how all that goes. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see another game of this era that we worked on in the past, I'll put the video for it up right here. And after a while, I guess whenever the new video comes out for Frankenstein, I'll put the final one where we actually play it up over here. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the next one.